Hey everybody, welcome to Pale in Comparison, a proud member of the Doof Network. In this podcast, my sister uses her knowledge of the Otherverse to take a look at Pact, Wildbow's least appreciated work, and I try to not give away any spoilers. I'm Jenny, and Malia convinced me to read Worm.
I'm Malia, and Jenny convinced me to read everything else. This episode, we are covering Collateral, chapters 4.5 and 4.6. Before we get into that, however, I'd like to issue a spoiler warning. This podcast is filled with pale spoilers. If you don't know whether Big G actually falls to winter and don't want us to tell you, stop now, read Pale, and come back to this podcast. As for Pact, there will be full spoilers through the chapters we are covering.
All right, we know everyone's been curious, so we're here to talk about Pale Conflections and the results of the fan art contest. Woo! All right. So let me see. Should we say runner-up or first place first? What do you think? We could have talked about this before we started recording, but
We should have talked.
it's too late. It's too late. All right. I mean,
Whatever you feel.
all right. Let's say the runner-up because it leads more suspense. You know, even though it's only like a few seconds. The runner-up. What was?
That was
Okay, never.
sorry.
That's fine.
I tried.
That's fine. I mean, you know, A for effort. It's fine. Our runner-up is Steven MVS with Just Vibin', which is a fantastic piece of art with Lucy and her bro listening and vibing to some music. It's pretty sweet.
They just look so peaceful. I love this one a lot.
Really weirdly peaceful for what song looks like it's playing.
Right, something kind of creepy.
It's like by the Carmine Killers, I think it's that on there. Just like, yeah, this is like super peaceful. But you know what? I mean, they're just vibing.
They're vibing.
That's just it.
Yep. And we are super excited to announce the first place winner of Pale Conflections is Aquila with
Yay!
And Justice for All, which
is delightful.
It's so fucking good, y'all. It's really adorable. It's Liberty in America doing their thing.
Which I just feel, I mean, it doesn't really make sense because I know it doesn't actually have anything to do with America, but I just feel more patriotic looking at it, you know?
Definitely.
I'm just not like,
America,
fuck yeah. You know?
Yeah. But yeah, so thank you so much for everyone who participated in both the submitting and the voting. There's a post up on doofmedia.com with, I think, the images. Okay, full disclosure, we're actually recording this before Elliot puts up the post, so I don't know what's on the post, but I'm sure
he's putting something
wonderful. Thank you, Elliot, for all of your work.
Yeah. So if he doesn't put the images, I mean, you know, just know that are bad, but I mean, it would have been a really great idea to put the images.
Next time, Elliot, put the images.
You know, but it's okay. You know, we all learn.
Yeah,
you know, from mistakes.
Yeah, this was really, really fun, and we hope to do it again. And have it be like a quarterly thing.
We're gonna do something. Yeah. I mean, I like seeing everyone's artistic talent.
Definitely.
I come up with, you know, stuff in my brain that I think would look cool, but if I try to put it to paper, it's just like being in kindergarten trying to draw with my left hand, you know? It's just, and I'm right-handed, just, you know, it's not gonna come out nice. But, you know,
yeah, we're very impressed by all of your talent and vision.
Yes, I'm impressed as heck. All right, now we're gonna get to our podcast. All right, quick summary of what we're going to go over. Blake and Rose set up a deal with the imp to be finalized later in the day. Blake ends up heading to the university in the meantime to try and form an alliance with Isadora. Unfortunately, miserably fails, and Rose disappears. He runs into Tiffany and has a coffee date after heading home to prepare, and still not seeing Rose anywhere. Blake is forced to meet up with the imp on his own. So we'll start with Blake and Rose negotiated a tentative deal with the imp and agreed to meet up later to finalize it.
Yeah, this part was really interesting and pretty funny. I'd kind of heard something about the Pig Latin thing before, so it was fun getting to it and being able to experience like the actual context.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I don't know if it was like an accident in the Discord that I noticed it. I think even before we started this podcast.
Oh.
But I didn't really remember it until it was like until reading it, and then I was like, ah ha ha ha. I've totally seen that before. So that was pretty funny. The fact that he doesn't know Pig Latin is funny, but it also makes sense that like that's not a important language to know, really. Like I feel like, you know, once you're done with your preteen years, it's not really relevant to anyone's life. So it makes sense that he wouldn't have necessarily picked it up from any of his hosts or whatever. But yeah, that was a really good comedy beat. And then another one was like immediately after where he's like, I don't know this language or whatever, and Blake's like, for real? And
That's true.
for real, Pow said, deadly serious. Like, it was just like so fucking funny. For real? For real. Like But honestly, this chapter was this whole section is just kind of a buzzkill. I mean, I talked about how in like the 4.1 chapter where it kind of recontextualized Miss Lewis and how she dealt with, I don't know if that's the right word, but like treated or thought about Blake. And then these whole 2 chapters is just like, okay, Blake stood near a demon and talked to it, and for the entire rest of the day, like the radiation or whatever is following him around. Like Blake can't ever have a pet. Like Blake can't ever like have friends or a girlfriend or anything, because like if he's or he just has to like never do the practice again, which is I think a thing maybe, or like never, I don't know. They're just, it sucks a lot and it's not his fault, and this whole thing was just a bummer. Like,
yeah,
the influence that this imp has had on all of these animals and all these humans, and it's like, oh, they'll never be normal again. And it's just like, where are the angels? Like, where's the opposite of these things just kind of like running around and like making everyone's lives like incredibly fucking amazing? Like, it feels like there should be like, the universe is stupid. The balance shouldn't be the people who do this have shitty karma. The balance should be there are fucking angels running around like blessing the shit out of people. Or something.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen anything, so we don't know exactly what's going on that end, right? So
that's fair. I mean, there's nothing like that so far in Pale. I mean, angels do seem like a Deus Ex Machina sort of thing, maybe, but they don't have to be. I mean, these demons aren't necessarily going to be all powerful. It's just, I don't know, this was just like a huge bummer. But it's just like, I don't quite remember why. Like, I know Blake has to reduce the debt, but I don't remember what happens to him if he doesn't. Is he like forsworn or something? Like, I don't remember what the deals with the contract were. Like, I feel like he should just like, I mean, it's hard because he attracts so much bullshit. But if he could just sit and not really practice, like, it seems like there are a decent amount of practitioners who sort of stop practicing. And I mean, they can't ever lie again or whatever. But if Blake just like could never interact with demons ever again, that would be great, because it seems like he's, I mean, he literally talked to this dude for what, like 5 minutes, and dogs tried to attack him, and this girl like, you know, freaked out at this sphinx, and like people just started getting into fucking fights. Like, it was just like, this is too much.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. And like, I'm wondering if it's just like why it, I mean, I guess it's just like the ancestral thing that he inherited, because I'm kind of like, okay, Blake literally just talked to this demon thingy. Like, presumably people who are like actively hunting and fighting these demon thingies or whatever aren't fucked just by being around it, but maybe they are. Does everything just suck this much? Like, what if you're
Do you think there's This is kind of just out of curiosity, just from you saying that. Do you think there's a lot of people that are trying to hunt down and fight demons?
No. I mean, so demons are like really powerful, really scary, really bad. And then also like practitioners are selfish and shitty. Like I got really upset thinking about how all these powerful practitioners and others in Toronto knew about the whole like goblin shit show party fest thing that destroyed Maggie's town. And like, you know, there was one dude who my best guess was he was like somehow leveraging Forsworn karma magic because he just sucked so bad. Like trying to do something about it and no one else. But then there's like in Pale there's people like Zed and maybe Jessica, like who I think there were people who wanted to stop the choir before the Kenneteers existed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there's like the whole weird complicated thing about witch hunters that we're currently experiencing in Pale and have seen a little bit of impact.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean it seems like demons are relatively rare. And I don't know that anyone would necessarily like be like, "Yep, I'm gonna go fight demons," but it seems like someone should. I don't know.
So back to this chapter.
I just have so many feelings.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think that Rose. I mean, I don't know. Rose is great. I love when she takes. I mean, it feels weird, like sometimes when she kind of takes over, because like Blake is the protagonist, like Blake is the point of view character, and so it's interesting when like that gets kind of taken when like I mean so often it is Blake rushing into dumb situations, but it's also that like when interacting with others Blake isn't at the center of things. He's like Rose's vessel. And it's interesting having because like I was thinking about like Rose keeps fucking getting captured, like she's this like damsel locked in this mirror and like that sucks. But then like when we're interacting with others, Blake is just like a meat bag. Like Blake just like carries Rose around and it, you know, like the others aren't really interacting with him. And that's really fascinating. To have your protagonist almost as a spectator of a lot of the scenes, because like this thing with pause or pause or whatever, it's like
Poos.
He's just like talking to Rose, right? He's not talking to Blake, and Rose, you know, occasionally says things to Blake, but it's just like, you know, oh, like my companion, blah blah blah. And when Blake exercises like agency, I guess, and like leaves the circle, it really surprised Rose and Pals, which I guess we'll get to in a little bit, but like I really loved that moment. It was a really cool power move. But anyway, seeing Rose doing cool stuff is awesome, and I think the time limit thing is really clever and also like really fucked, like really like morally bankrupt, but also like what can anyone do? I don't know, but just like even Conquest shouldn't have a demon sicked on him. Even if it's not a real demon, and even if there's a chance that Conquest could conquer that demon, like that's not better. And it just Rose seems much. I mean, we've talked about this before too, but Rose seems much more willing to make immoral decisions to save herself and Blake. And I think that's something that Grandma Rose has sort of programmed her with. Like I would put Rose, like I don't know that I'd necessarily, if I was doing a D&D alignment thingy for Rose, I don't think I'd put her in good. Like I definitely wouldn't put her in evil, but I think I might put her in neutral. I think she's willing to do things that aren't necessarily great. I don't know.
I don't know anything about D&D alignment stuff, so I'm going to take your word on that.
It's great. Okay, it's a square. There's 9 squares in the big square. So the columns...
Oh, is that like those random graphs that like chaotic, good, and like...
It's like, so it's lawful, neutral, chaotic, and then good, neutral, evil, right? So I think that Blake is chaotic good, and I think that Rose is maybe like true neutral. I don't really know. I mean, I think she's like a good person, and D&D alignment is not perfect, and also I think they might actually be discontinuing it, which is fascinating, but it's fun to think about sometimes.
That's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then Rose usually is like on top of shit and is usually pretty good with words and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And we've just had, like, we had evidence in the first arc that Patrick can reach through the mirror to touch her, right? And then we, like, literally just got away from a dude who pulled her out of that mirror and put shackles on her. And her negotiation with this demon is, don't hurt my companion. Like, what the fuck, Rose? Like, why not include yourself? There's no fucking harm in being like, don't hurt either of us, lol. And she's literally like, promise the safety of my companion when he leaves this circle. And it's like, God damn it, Rose. What the fuck are you doing? Like, that tripped me up the first time I read it, where I was like, wait, why? But then I was like, oh, it's really fine or something. And like, it wasn't, Malia. Like, I trust a lot of things often to be okay and to go well, because sometimes in books, you know, just like little things you kind of like are like, oh, what's going on? Like, I mean, y'all have heard the like rabbit holes and like weird shit I can like really get attached to. When I was still catching up on Pale, there's a chapter where Verona's complaining about how hot it is, and a thing in the Wheel of Time is like, the weather is important, and all the characters will really harp on like, oh, it's so hot, blah 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 blah. And so I was like convinced that some like crazy weather magic was happening, and Jenny was like, please stop talking about this. Like, this is not happening. And I was like, I don't know. So I can really get caught up on like little things, and so I let this one go, and I shouldn't have let this one go, because goddamn it, Rose.
It's hard to know if you're gonna have a chocolate bar situation or not, you know?
Yeah.
You're familiar with that reference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just making sure. I was like, I thought you listened to that. If any of you are not, go listen to We've Got Ward.
Woo!
I don't remember which episode it was, but there's
I
an
remember
instance.
the scene.
Yes. Byron and the chocolate bar.
Byron and the chocolate bar.
Matt has a real, like, he gets real suspicious. It's pretty great. So.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, like I mentioned this earlier, but Blake leaves the circle, right? Which was a really great power move, but also like it just felt like these two really get each other and really support each other. Because like this reminded me of the shackle moment with Rose, where she grabs the shackle and puts it on herself, realizing that Blake couldn't. Like, Blake leaves the circle when Paz calls her out, being like, oh, you know, like, I don't have to promise his safety, like, we could just leave you there, like, whatever, it doesn't even matter, you're, like, this little girl afraid of me hiding in the circle or whatever. And Blake's response, and, like, he's the one physically present there, although it's very heavily implied at the end of next chapter that Rose was not safe from Paz. But Blake leaves the circle to, like, give weight to what Rose was saying, which was, like, so fucking great, and, like, a solid move. Good job, Blake. Like, I think of them as siblings. I'm like, yeah, you stand up for your sister, and it's like, that's weird, but okay, yeah. Like, I guess that's what we could call her.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. But then Rose is talking. Oh, and she's like, you know, about to say a name of one of the demons of the fifth circle of the blur.
The blur.
Yeah, and I was like, because she says like a syllable, and I'm like, was she gonna actually say a name? Does she know any of the names? Like, she reads a lot. She's also good at bullshit.
Yeah. You know what would really suck?
Hmm.
Like, especially like if you're a diabolist, like especially like when like the Thorburn family, you know, where they've been in it for generations.
Mhm.
You got all this knowledge because you've read up a bunch of stuff. It'd really suck if you were a sleep talker.
Oh my god. Yeah, the universe would not care that you didn't mean it.
Oh,
Or
hell no.
consciously anything. It like would not at all care. Wow, that sucks. Wow, Bo, write us a story, please, or somebody write a story about a practitioner who sleep talks. Because my god,
Yeah, like what happens if you like are lying in your like you're telling lies in your sleep, or like, I mean, especially the diabolists, like if you call a demon, okay, first of all, what a fucking rude awakening that is. And like, do you just have to, yeah, I'm like, how would you prevent that? Maybe you could do some weird practice to prevent you from sleep talking, but what if you didn't know that you slept talked until it's too late, and then you got this motherfucker like bringing down like the sky on you and shit, you know?
Yeah. Well, like, yeah, because I don't think I normally sleep talk, and I'm not even sure that I technically really do. But my boyfriend mentioned a month or two ago that I like rolled over and started like mumbling things, like kind of nonsense, but like woke him up and stuff. Like I don't think they were necessarily even real words, but like that would suck so bad.
Exactly, because you know it just has to be a real word to, you know, in a language or something, right?
Mm.
What if it's a demon name you didn't know, and then you just said it? Like, I mean, you have to say it like 7 times, but like, depending on what kind of weird ass dream you're having, you know, if you're just mumbling the same shit over and over.
That's so interesting. Well, hmm. Now I'm wondering if just like people, just like practitioners, could accidentally call a demon without meaning to. Ever.
Maybe, but I mean, they'd have to know the names,
Mm-hmm.
or at least most likely. I
I
mean,
don't know.
I could see it if like if someone if like dabblism was real, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
someone was listening to our podcast and they listened to us being like, "Here is the dawning of the age of Ornias." I could see them like, just, you know, in their sleep or just like subconsciously like being like, "Age of Ornias," and then like, "Oh fuck."
Our bad to any of you practitioners out there.
So that's
Sorry.
really, so this is what I'm saying. Okay, this is really the way that like if you're evil and trying to spread that shit, this is like they're going about this like the wrong way, you know? All they got to do is like set up like a fake company, come up with some really fucking annoying jingles. Okay? Just like the like 877 cash now, which I'm sorry. Now like everyone's like fuck you, Jenny. Be singing that forever. But yeah, just, you know, just get a really annoying jingle, and then everyone's gonna be like, at least occasionally, like being like, I don't know, like meow 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 meow. You know, we're gonna do something like that, and it's gonna be said plenty of times. I don't know. What do you think, Malia?
I think that's brilliant. This reminds me of Good Omens, and Crowley's theory of like collecting souls, which I don't know if you've read or seen that, Jenny, but you really should.
I've not.
The TV show, it's almost like a mini series. It's like 6 or 8 episodes or something. It's on Amazon Prime. It's real good. But he like does stuff to try to make highways into the shape of like demonic symbols to release just like a little bit of bad energy every time like people drive over it, and he ties up phone lines to make people angry and like just make everyone a little bit more upset. It's like really brilliant. But I agree, they should have like a shitty talk radio station where they have a bunch of really annoying radio jingles.
Like the thing is, it wouldn't
TV
even
ads.
Yeah, like it wouldn't be hard, and like because there's ads everywhere, like pervasive, annoying ads, like on YouTube. You just stick it in one of those, you know. Like you don't have ad blocker, well, you're gonna get this demon jingle. Okay,
Here's a demon jingle.
Here's a demon jingle.
It's brilliant.
It is. I mean, and really, what's more evil than like those pop-up video ads, right? Like when you're just minding your own business, going to some random website or going, I don't know, going about your day, then you get this annoying ass pop-up video that, of course, the X, like they've got like a fake X in one corner that like causes you to go to the actual website.
Oh,
and then
those are mean.
It's like, oh, you guys are like, maybe they're the real Diabolists. Okay? Because like that's just evil. Come on, guys. Like, just give us a little bit of peace in our lives. We don't need just like all these ads just like suffocating us to death, you know? So that's my thoughts on that.
That's fair. Yeah, definitely.
I'm glad you agree.
Yeah, I feel like with that, I'm ready to move on to the next little part.
All right. Next part, Blake, basically, after all that, he goes to the university, attempts to reach out to Isadora, and shortly after he gets to the university, he realizes he's being followed by a somewhat sizable group.
Yeah, there are just little sentences in Pact that I don't understand sometimes, and I'm not sure if it's like Wildbow was a newer author, or I'm not as good of a reader, or I just like don't fucking get Blake sometimes, but like, so he's going to visit the Sphinx and they're going to like do the mutiny or whatever. And he's like thinking about going and seeing the Sphinx, and he's like, odds were good she wouldn't be there, but that was ideal. And I was like, literally, what are you talking about? Like, I mean, the odds are good she wouldn't be there, maybe because professors fuck off and do other shit a lot of the time, or whatever. But like, why would that be ideal? Like, if you're not going to see her, why are you here? Go back to your warded apartment? Like, what the fuck are you doing? What? I don't get that sentence.
Yeah, I was trying to go over it. I don't remember.
Like, it's like maybe he was like gonna like sneak into her office and look around, or like plant something in there. That's a bad idea though. Don't fucking sneak into a like super powerful other's shit. Like, but like there's no discussion of that being what he wanted to do. So the sentence is just kind of, I didn't get it.
Maybe he was hoping he'd run into some of her followers. It's like maybe he was like, they'll be easier to kind of convince.
Maybe. Does she have followers? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, she's got like, I guess it could just be her
grad students.
just grad students.
That'd be really funny.
I mean, she's a professor of like philosophy or something,
and ethics, which is fucking funny.
Yeah. So,
yeah, she probably has some grad students.
She's got some grad students, so he was hoping to run into the grad students and just be like, "Hey guys, like, this is real important. I need some help, with this stuff." And you have to do it in a way to where he wouldn't be sketchy somehow when he's radiating demon. So
he could try.
True.
Yeah. But Blake is there because he's chosen to be there for reasons, and there's people following him, and I didn't figure this out at all. Which was kind of embarrassing on a reread because it's just like, oh, they're drunk. Like, oh, look at the amount of drinking that they're doing. Wow.
To be fair, it is a college campus.
Yeah.
So,
It's a good place for them, I suppose.
That is a great place. I mean,
yeah, I thought maybe so I thought it was going to be like I thought it was a red herring. I thought it was going to be a fake out. Like, I thought they were just some people and Blake was just, like, going to freak the fuck out and it wasn't going to be anything. Like, I wasn't, and, like, with the girls, I wasn't entirely sure. Like, they seemed like, but I was like, oh, maybe they just think he's hot. Like, I just, like, wasn't sure, but it didn't, I was kind of like, oh, I bet this is, like, some weird fake out. And then it was like, nope.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess I just sort of thought that Jeremy was just going to, like, leave him alone. I'm not really sure what their plan was, or if they were, like, specifically sent there to fuck with him, or if they were just like, he.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I could see them. I could see it either way, because, like, you also could see it, like, it's probably a prime spot to hang out, because, again, it's a university and, like, drunk people, you know? Like, sure, you might say that there's not a lot of people hanging out drunk off their ass in the middle of the day. I would say most of the time you're right. But
not all the time.
But not all the time. Yeah. Sometimes you do get little packs of drunk people running around.
Yeah.
At least at some colleges. I know I went to one of them.
Also, I just realized there's not snow in Toronto. I guess, well, because there was definitely snow in Jacobs. There was definitely snow a week ago, right? And there's not anymore, which is totally possible. I was just kind of like, because it's summer now, right, in real life, and so I was like, oh, it's like summer, like there's not many people here, but no, it's not summer at all. Like, it was snowing a week ago. And I'm kind of trying to figure out, like, is this the middle, like, has the semester started? Is this the middle of the semester? Like, I don't know, like, why are the only people on this campus at, like, you know, late morning a group of people who want to fuck Blake up? And Tiffany.
So yeah, that's another thing, which this is not a good idea in general, but, like, alcohol makes you warmer. So
I thought it doesn't.
Like, let me rephrase. I didn't phrase that well. It makes you feel warmer. It makes you feel like the cold's not bothering you. Yeah, in actuality, it makes you colder. It's more likely to make you to freeze to death. So not a good idea to just load up on a bunch of whiskey if you're in the middle of nowhere and you're freezing. It'll make you feel more comfortable as you're freezing to death, I guess. But I'm being a little more dramatic with my words. I mean, hopefully you wouldn't be in a situation like that with where your only survival gear is whiskey. But you never know. People get into some weird shit. But yeah. Yep. Yepers. All right. Blake ends up running into Tiffany. As he's kind of trying to get away from this group of drunk hooligans. They talk and walk, her being completely oblivious for a while to the group tailing them because she's so into Blake. And he asked her out for some coffee.
So I didn't expect her, but this was really delightful. I was really happy. I really, really like her. She's very cute and sweet. And this was really fun. It was fun balancing the, like, practice and otherworldly ridiculousness of what was going on with, like, oh, here's a girl and she has a crush on me, and I don't, like, it was just, like, funny. I feel like I don't really remember if Blake is aware of innocence, like the concept of innocence, and that he shouldn't tell people about the practice. I can't remember if he's been instructed in that yet. But I thought this was, like, pretty funny, and yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of sweet.
Yeah. I also, sometimes when I'm reading a story, like, the character will kind of be doing something or talking about something, and I will try that thing, and I feel like it doesn't necessarily work as well. Like,
Uh-huh.
if I was doing the peripheral vision thing where I like turned and looked at a person to try to like see what was behind me, you know, like I couldn't see like, oh, there were 5 dudes and blah blah blah. Like I feel like that wouldn't work for me very well. But
Yeah.
it was kind of clever. It helped raise the tension a lot. It helped keep track of both things that were happening. And I also feel like if I was walking next to a dude and he kept like turning his entire head to face me, like that'd be weird. And I liked that visual.
That's true. I mean, I guess she was looking at the ground a lot, so if she, you know.
I love it. But yeah, I wonder, like, Tiffany is attracted to him and is kind of awkward and stuff herself, but I wonder like how fucking neurotic Blake seems, with like the head turning and the like coffee and the like, you know, like all of that stuff, like, because often in your mind things are a lot more like Tiffany kind of embodies this next chapter where she's like, oh, I was eating a donut really slowly and stuff. Like, a lot of the times the things going on in your head aren't being noticed very much by the people around you. Mm-hmm. But Blake doesn't seem quite as aware of what other people perceive of him. Yeah. And I'm just wondering if Tiffany's like, what the fuck is going on? Or if she's just like, oh, okay.
I mean, I'm going to be real with you. Like, on my read of her, I feel like she comes across as so self-conscious and so, like, kind of worried about making, I don't know, like, kind of shy and, like, worried about making a good impression and all that stuff herself. And again, I mean, I was joking, but she really was looking at the ground a lot. I don't think she fucking noticed. It's not like she was like, hey, like, that's a bunch of people following you. Like, are you know those guys? You know, so like, I feel like she's so into him, and just like kind of nervous about making a good impression. She honestly didn't notice any of that crap. And on that note, she must really freaking like him to still like not be subconsciously swayed by the demon-ness that he's radiating, right?
Well, I mean, it affects her a little bit, right?
But not towards him, you know? Like,
that's true. I'm trying to think of other people interacting with Blake.
At least I mean,
the dog fucking can't deal. But I think that the dog, like, Briar Girl said that, like, dogs and, like, the animals can tell, like, they can sense it. I kind of got the feeling that innocents would be affected by the radiation a bit, but they wouldn't be able to, like, it, like, because she snaps at the Sphinx because the Sphinx says, like, oh, you smell? And she's like, he doesn't smell. You're such a bitch, you know? Yeah. Because, like, she doesn't sense that in the same way. It's just kind of affecting her.
Yeah, but you also would think, like, the closer you get to him, the more you're going to get the effect of it, even if you can't quite tell where it's coming from. And that's so true. And he didn't really interact, like, one-on-one with a lot of innocence, really. Like, even with, like, the dog people, he tried to get away from that. So I feel like if people are getting fights around him just from that, it's not too much of a stretch to be like, if he actually tried to interact with people, they probably would have gotten real aggressive towards him. That's what I would assume, at least.
Right. Right. Yeah, kind of bouncing off of that, I feel like one of the chapters, maybe even the first chapter we talked about in this whole podcast, you were like, why are these people such assholes? Or maybe it was the Grandma Rose interlude or something. But it's just like these 2 chapters are doing a really amazing job of like showing exactly what the demon influence does. And it's like, oh, your family sucks so bad because their mom was like a world-class diabolist for their entire fucking lives. Like, like these people could have maybe been better. And it's kind of shocking that they don't all fucking suck. And it's like interesting because I wonder if the radiation like sticks to other people. So for instance, like all of Grandma Rose's kids fucking suck, right? But some of her grandchildren are cool. And none of them really live in Jacob's Bell. Like Molly and them only moved there, I feel like, relatively recently. And so I wonder if like the parents suck because of the radiation, but like if, you know, that radiation didn't necessarily transfer to their children. And a lot of their issues are like their parents suck. But yeah, it was just like I feel like Wildbow's doing a really, really good job these 2 chapters of like really spelling this out and making it clear in a way that I hadn't quite been understanding before. In terms of like how this impacts people. And it's made me like kind of reevaluate some of the stuff from earlier on.
Okay. Interesting. So basically they get up to Isadora's place, try to go inside, get stopped by the drunk hooligan dudes, and then Isadora comes out. She basically comes to the rescue, but ends up declining, starting an alliance, and Rose ends up disappearing.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. She didn't even really let Blake talk. She was just like, no, leave.
Yeah.
The windows thing was really interesting because Blake says like 2 windows broke. And I mean, this is a thing we've seen Rose do before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would she break 2? I'm kind of thinking, especially because Isadora says a window was broken. Meaning like 1 window was broken. I kind of think that like Rose panicked, trying to save Blake, breaks a window, and like that's when she's taken. And that like the second window wasn't really a window, it was something else about the dream window mirrorscape thingy something. And because herself was so diminished because of that exertion of power, like the demon people or the conquest people or the whoever people like got in there and took her at that moment.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. I was surprised by how quickly the Sphinx or Isadora shuts Blake down. I was imagining a conversation or something. I don't know. Like she's just like, nope, leave. Like,
yeah.
I guess it's like there could be spies and stuff around, but also like, why would Isadora align herself with the man with like as shit karma as you can get without being forsworn, who has no power sources and is like very much controlled by like the Lord of Toronto? Like it just seems like she's doing fine, and yeah.
And he positively reeks. It's like if some dude,
right?
It's like if you fell into like a sewer and you were covered in like human excrement, and would you still try to go to that job interview? Or would you try to still go like to that business meeting, and or do you think you would have that other person would be like, no,
please
get the fuck out of here. Yeah, leave immediately.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
I think that's fair. So let me see. Now we get to Blake and Tiffany's coffee date.
Woo! Yeah, I said this before, but I really like Tiffany. I feel like Blake does give her some good advice in this section. I think it's interesting because like he seems somewhat wise and well put together when he's talking to her, but I think that he kind of thinks of himself as a hot mess, and I think that I think of him as kind of a hot mess, but that might just be that this past week, or for this past week, he's been a hot mess. And a lot of the background details are like that we have is like Blake on the street and like Blake whatever, like the Blake living in his apartment and doing work for his friends and whatever. Like, that's not a Blake that I have very clearly laid out in my mind. But I'm really curious as to how other people perceive Blake, because I don't think he's good at perceiving himself. I think sometimes maybe he's too hard on himself, and then sometimes he's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like he did a really, I mean, he was coming across pretty smooth and pretty, like, he's doing a good job talking to Tiffany. I like her too. I'm like, girl, like, gotta bump up your confidence a little bit.
Well, I'm really curious as to her backstory. I think that for some reason we were introduced to her, I got the impression that she was like from a wealthy and abusive and like very sheltered family. But like that seems wrong, because she was like, oh, my family couldn't afford, like, I never thought I'd come to university, we couldn't afford it. Yeah. And then she talks about like violence being a really big part of her background. So I think that like abuse was still probably a factor. Yeah. But also like this is her first date. Like I'm curious as to all of this stuff, I guess. Because it seems like, because she was talking to some dude when she saw Blake. It seems to me, I mean, a lot of people don't really go on their first date until college or whatever. Like, there's a lot of people who don't do that for whatever reasons. But I feel like if this is more of she has experienced trauma and hasn't been able to live freely. I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because I think the thing that really I think the thing that really like cements for me how much I like her, and also makes me think a little bit less of Blake, is like how she responds later after they leave. Because like, I mean, I don't know if we want to just like jump to this in my notes, or if you wanted to go more in order.
I have no idea where you're going.
I want to go to where she says maybe.
Oh, okay. We can. I wanted to talk about what you put in the notes about the labels and stuff as well. But
right. Well, I think I put it kind of in both of those spots.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that like the thing that really, well, I thought like, oh, Tiffany's really cute and this is really fun. But when he asked Tiffany out again and she says maybe, like that really cemented like, oh, I really like her. And that was really bold of her and like really great. And she like calls Blake on a lot of his bullshit, because like I think he's been kind, but he also has been like looking at her as a pet project, right? He's been looking down on her and like, oh, like, let me give you a whole bunch of advice. Like, let me talk about myself. Like, let me talk about all the dates I've had. Like, let me talk about all this stuff. But then also like, let me, tell you what's up. And I think maybe she appreciated some of that, and that was kind of fine. But I think that when she's like, hey, like, you have to promise, well, the first promise of like, don't like forgive this for turning into a therapy session, like I don't think she wants that sort of relationship, which is good. Like, you should not date someone who is your therapist, or who is acting as your therapist. You should be more like partners.
Yes.
But also like, when she's like, don't turn me into a label, I was like, fuck yeah, Tiffany. Like, because it was reading it through it was funny. It was like, oh yeah, like the singer and the whatever, like it was an easy kind of shorthand way to think about those dates and situations and whatever, but it was also like super reductive. And I think Tiffany saying maybe and saying like, don't put a label on me, was a moment of like, hype, like I'm a real person. Like it's interesting that Alexis keeps trying to get him together with different people, because she doesn't seem to want to be with Blake, possibly in pursuit of getting Blake to move on and be with someone else.
It's just weird that she mentioned her threesome, though.
Yeah,
it's just like a not a good move, bro. Like,
yes. Oh god.
like that's pretty. Anyway.
Yeah. But it was just like, I think that this was a really great moment for Tiffany. But also I think that Blake misread and misunderstood her. He kept talking about how shy she was and kept talking about, like, oh, she keeps looking down, oh, she keeps whatever. But she, like, left the person she was with, walked across the quad and started talking to him. And she, like, in this moment calls him out without, I mean, she's not a dick about it, but she doesn't say, oh, yes, I'd love another date, Blake. Which, and she's not like, oh, it really, I don't, it really upset me. It was just like, oh, don't turn me into a label. Like, it was like, fuck yeah. Like, I don't know. I really enjoy her, and I didn't think she'd necessarily be a part of the story. But I think that she reminds Blake that people are more complicated, and also, like, has helped him maybe not look down on her as much. Her kind of asserting herself like this helps put her on equal footing with Blake, in his mind, in a way she shouldn't have necessarily had to do, but works out. I mean, to be fair, she was introduced to Blake as like, oh, this is my new project who we should sleep with to help her heal her trauma.
What a terrible idea.
Right. And so that's not exactly like putting her in the mind. Whereas like with Tiffany, it was probably like, oh, here's my friend Blake. Isn't he super hot? Like, look at this picture. And then with Blake, it's like, oh, maybe sleep with this girl because she needs our help. So that is like a very different emotional place to approach this relationship,
and I mean,
from.
Just also, like, I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying, like, in terms of, like, it's super awesome, obviously. She said, like, maybe, and brought up the label thing and everything, and it did show that she's, and what you were saying about, like, her going over and talking to him and stuff like that. But there were a lot of ways that interaction was going to pretty much, like, was like a giant sign that was like, I have no confidence in myself. Like, besides just body language, but like her in particular, like being like when they were talking about the painting that he bought from her, and she was like, oh, you paid too much for it. He's like, I think it was worth more, blah blah blah. But then he was like, oh, like, everybody liked it, and she's like, oh, like, did he actually like it? And then he was like, yeah, well, I mean, everybody at the party liked, they told him it was really good. And she's like, okay, so he didn't really like it then. And then he was like quiet because he was like looking at stuff, and she's like, oh, like, did he really not like it?
That's true. That's true.
Like, you have a point for sure, and I agree, but like, it's not like she's just this secret person brimming with like confidence that she's just hiding, like,
yeah.
Like, he did have some valid reasons for like how he was approaching, I feel like, the conversations and everything. I felt,
no, I agree.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm glad that she said that at the end, because it did, like, kind of, I was kind of just like, oh, like, I'm not just a shy, meek little person, like, I'm more than just that.
Yeah, I feel like if I was on a first, like, if a guy had asked me out, we went to coffee, like, at this age and stage of my life, and he had been, like, I don't know that I would have realized that he, like, talked a lot about himself the whole time and didn't necessarily ask me many questions, and I don't know that I would have noticed, like, it would have just been like, oh, this really hot guy who, like, asked me out again. I'm pretty sure I would have just been like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And giggled and walked away. And so I think that, like, comparing it to how I imagine myself to have been in this situation, I'm just, like, very proud of her.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
She did She did good.
She did good.
I feel
also,
like he. Oh, I was just say, I honestly feel like he did pretty good too, with all the shit happening, like around him.
No, I think that it was a nice date, other than like the fight or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that like, I mean, I think I would have said yes, you know. Like I think that like Tiffany. I mean, like it sucks because if Blake continues down the road of the Diabolus life,
Less dates.
like it seems like they actually could potentially be kind of good for each other. But
Yeah, you think that'd be a deal breaker?
well, I just think she's gonna become a bad person. Like I think that like anyone who
I know, I was kind of kidding. I was like, if he was like, hey, like this is going really great, but I got to tell you, I do magic with demon shit. You know, how would that fucking go over?
see yeah, the Tiffany toward the beginning of this chapter, I was like maybe she'd be like that's fine, or like, you know, but like no, Tiffany would be like bye.
Yeah, like you're cute,
Boy,
but not
bye.
that cute, man. I don't think anyone's that cute.
No. But the kiss thing at the end was very cute. That was
Mhm.
very smooth and adorable.
That was cute.
Yeah, I like it.
So then he basically has to say peace out and go back home to prepare for the potential binding, depending on what the imp says. Rose still is MIA, which is a bummer.
Yeah, it took me probably longer than it should have to actually get worried about Rose. I think we've started a decent number of chapters where like Rose wasn't there for one reason or another. She was, you know, getting the books from the house, or she was, you know, in another place, or she, you know, like with Laird, she didn't show up for a while, and with like the first time when they went to get coffee, um and different things like that. I think I kind of like didn't start to get concerned fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
But this section was a really interesting way of like following Blake around, watching him prepare, watching him try to calm himself down, watching him like increasingly freak out. Really built the tension in a really
Yeah.
good way. Because when he finally is like, you know, Rose Thorburn, I summon you or whatever, and she doesn't show up, I was like, oh fuck. And I think rating Pale and thinking about Miss really solidified how, like, I think it was more of a big deal for me knowing how big of a deal like names and calling people are in from Pale.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like we haven't seen Blake, like we've seen Blake's glamour crack when Maggie said his name or whatever, but we haven't seen like I like the Kenneteers can call each other and like get each other's attention, you know. Um and so I think for me, like the fact that she couldn't come or whatever, like that was really intense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. His prep is pretty funny. I wonder if he looks ridiculous with like the bleach lines all over himself. I liked that. I'm often not very good at understanding why Wild Bow is doing certain things. So even though on the second read it felt a little heavy-handy, where it was like pork chops are part of a nutritious meal, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, thanks for spelling this out. Like, yeah, like bleach is pure. Okay, yeah, like straight lines because the chaos, cool. And I kind of liked the tie felt dorky, but I was also like, lol, this is good. I wonder if those were in when this book was written. They probably were, although it feels a little bit old. Anyway, it was pretty. This feels like Blake's uniform, kind of like his outfit. Like I feel like this might be the outfit that people do fan art of him in. Is like blonde hair, like red tie, jacket and shirt with like lines all over it. maybe like rolled up with tattoos. Somehow you got to get the tattoos in there. But I kind of feel like this was a very like, I don't know, this was an outfit.
Random question, just based on what you just said. Because looking at how many arcs there are, we're still like have got a ways to go through the story.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to hypothesize, and I know this is not a fair question, what would be like? What do you think fan art of Blake at the end of the story is going to look like?
I just hit myself in the tooth with my microphone. Okay. I don't know. I'm kind of imagining like really haunted, like looks on his face, like bags under his eyes. I'm picturing like very tattered or like ripped clothes with his like with very incredibly pale skin and like bright red tattoos. And yeah, just like things are not going to go well for Blake.
Okay. That could be a fun question to come back to later on as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, awesome.
Yeah, but I was so mad when he finally was like, "Okay, I'll read some of this stupid Black Lamb's shit," and then it's like not even fucking helpful even a little bit. I was like, "This is such bullshit! Like, why are you gonna give this like I guess that it's just like stupid propaganda or whatever, but like, why don't you at least give him some like possibly useful information?" I mean, I guess like that would be like they need to exact a price for potentially useful information, but it was just like, this is so dumb. Like, I was so mad.
Man. So he ends up leaving, goes to the Dowdy house. I feel like I didn't spell
It's
that
such
right.
a funny name. I don't know how else to pronounce it. I really love it.
The Dowdy house. I'm gonna. I can't. I know they wrote down his name, like how it's pronounced. I swear I think it's Poos. So I'm gonna say Poos. So Poos is not surprised that Blake is by himself. Uh-oh.
So my second read, I was like, wait, you got to the outside of the house, and then you took a piece of paper or something, and a pen, and a tome, which I'm assuming is the Black Lamb's blood, out of your backpack, and then you fucking throw your backpack? Like, what is going on? But I guess he didn't, like, prep his backpack with, like, the bleach or something. That was my only possible... That was the only thing that made sense at all. Also, this house is gross. I feel bad for that man. I feel bad for these animals. I feel bad for everyone within, a mile radius. I just feel bad.
Yeah. It's pretty jacked up, right?
Yeah. I also feel like I guessed... Well, okay. There is a chance that it wasn't actually Poos who stole Rose or whatever. I'm pretty sure that it was because she wasn't like, "Hi, don't hurt me," and he's like, "Hey, you're alone." But part of me is like, oh, maybe Conquest yanked her chain or whatever, for reasons. But anyway, I kind of figured that, like, oh, I bet the demon fucking took her. I think around the time he, like, calls for her and she doesn't come. And so this was a mean cliffhanger. Sometime I want you to explain, like, how you pick the chapters for me to read. If it's literally just, like, you try to make me read 2. Because I'm okay with just reading 1 sometimes if I don't have to feel these feelings. And I think the date went really nicely together, but man.
Okay, but you have to understand, I know how it feels, but like, it's sometimes better to be left on a cliffhanger like that, because then we get fun things like predictions. And like, instead of you immediately being like, oh, that's what happened, then you get to be like, oh, this is what I think is going on. Da-da-da-da.
That's true.
And the
I
good
just
thing
feel
is,
like there was some chapter early on where you like didn't leave me on a cliffhanger, and I was like, wow, that's really nice. Jenny's not going to do that to me.
no, a lot of it is like if two chapters go well together, I'll just be like, you can read both of those. That works.
Okay.
If it ends up being on a cliffhanger, then it's kind of a bonus for me. In fact, if it's going to be a really good cliffhanger, I'm probably more likely to just be like, read just this one. But no, I mean, but yeah, I'll if they go well together, at least.
Cool.
But I mean, the good thing is, as soon as we're done recording, you can start reading again. Woo! Whether you decide you want to or not, based on how it seems this chapter is going to go, since it's getting late tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. So it's super gross. Poozy Poo is like, yeah, I kind of figured that you were going to be by yourself, bruh.
Yeah, he sucks. It's also just like, I mean, so we're at the end of this arc, we'll be a quarter done with the story. And I have to keep reminding myself of that because I'm keep being like, oh, 16 arcs, like that's so short compared to other Wild Bill works, which, like, you know, it's not Worm, but it's still like sizable.
Uh-huh.
And because I keep thinking like, oh, we gotta fucking get back to Jacob's Bell. Like, we gotta, like, where's Paige? Like, where's, like, all this other shit that I thought was happening in this story. But we're gonna get there probably. And, like, I feel like they're spending a chunk of time setting up how gross and scary this imp is, because this is a pathetic sign of things to come. Like, we got, like, Barbatorum, who's, like, locked in a circle, and then we get, like, this imp, right, who's not even a real demon, and we're just gonna slowly rank up until, like, all of Canada is on fire, and and Pale is in an alternate timeline where everyone's memories have been erased. Or this is one of oh my god, what if Ted Haven shows up at the end of this story, and he's just like, oh, fuck, man. Let's redo this timeline.
That'd be pretty crazy.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
That'd be pretty crazy. Yeah. So yeah, like, yeah, especially with what you just said, like, in terms of an imp, like, it's not even like a real demon. It's just like a little, it's like, and what Rose was kind of saying, she's like, you're like barely even, you're not even on their radar. You don't really want to be because they're like such big bros. Like, you know, and he's doing a lot of bad stuff. So can you fathom, like,
well, I'm kind of like, where are they? I mean, maybe like the Innocence Shield is like super blocking my awareness of anything going on. Because I mean, like, I guess like the goblin thing was like, Blake didn't know about that before, and it seems like he should have. And like this neighborhood maybe is kind of sequestered or something from most of this place. But it seems like maybe demons just normally aren't actually in the world running around. And they're kind of all like in a different realm for the most part, and sometimes they're summoned into the world, but maybe like, because it just seems like if there's a whole bunch of demons, or even like 7, or even like 2, like you'd kind of be like, oh, that place, like, I don't know, like that place is like, natural disaster doesn't even cover it, you know? Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe the natural disasters are demon places.
Or demon places?
I mean, like, maybe like the California or Australia wildfires, it was like a demon got out.
I feel like That's not bad enough.
Right. Yeah. But then, like, where are they?
I'll just have to see, man.
Yep. Yeah. Also, somebody mentioned. I feel like somebody mentioned. Maybe one of the witch hunters, in the latest Verona chapter, Elise mentioned demons as being really bad, and I was just like, "Lol." You're right, Elise.
Yeah.
Maybe y'all should go fight some of those and leave the 13-year-olds alone. I guess they'd all probably die instantly, but, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like in that most recent Pale chapter, she said something like specifically about like how like, oh, there's worse things than demons and stuff like that. And I was kind of just like, I don't think you've actually seen a real demon before. Like maybe you've seen a moat or something. Or an imp, maybe. But I don't think you've seen a real demon to have that opinion. So, we're going to do our Pale in Comparison section of this podcast. It's actually a really good one, so props to Malia for throwing this out there. We want to compare Blake and Tiffany's date to Lucy and Wallace's date.
Yay!
Yay! Which one do you think was better, first of all?
Lucy and Wallace.
I agree.
Yeah, I had to kind of think through what had happened. I mean, I think Blake and Tiffany's date went well, in terms of just like they had fun, they're probably going to see each other again, whatever. And I think that Lucy and Wallace's date was maybe more, I almost want to say more fraught, but that sounds super ridiculous considering the fact that Blake was like chased down by a bunch of like people who wanted to have sex with him and then eat him or whatever, and then like there were fights breaking out and shit.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Bake do. But like with Lucy and Wallace, it was more like the group date aspect really fucked with things, you know? Because like if Lucy and Wallace hadn't had the time to like sit and talk outside of the movie, I would say that Blake and Tiffany's date was better. You know, because like I think that like both these dates were really good for our protagonist, right? Like they both really helped restore their self and like settle them into kind of a normal life, and like were really nice reaffirming moments or whatever.
Yeah.
But the group aspect really made it hard for Lucy, with Emerson fucking sucking and just all the things that were basically like, was that a microaggression? Like, what's going on? And then like she's like eavesdropping on the boys, and like she just was very like tense.
And fucking Javier or Xavier, however he pronounces his name,
right?
Thinking he could beat her in a sword fight, which is hilarious.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
Yeah, like I'm sure that's what you think, and she's just like, you have a right to your opinion.
Yeah, and so it just a lot of that was different. But then like with Lucy and Wallace, they were both like, you know, they both kind of liked each other and both, you know, wanted to go on this date or whatever. Whereas for Blake, it was like, I'm asking this girl on this date so she doesn't possibly get murdered by these like Dionysus bros I feel or whatever.
Like, you know, was the better option. So
totally, but it wasn't like, oh, we like each other and we're both deciding to, you know, it was just like, oh fuck, coffee, let's go. Yeah. And it was like, oh, I'm seeing you as like, you know, not an equal yet. I think like Lucy and Wallace also didn't really ever think about each other or see each other in that way toward the beginning of the story, you know, and you know, made out of the party or whatever, and then like started considering each other more, which is interesting, but their relationship seemed more on like the same level. Whereas, you know, with Blake and Tiffany, it was just like, fuck. It was also a lot shorter, and it was a lot more like Blake talking, which is useful for us as the readers, but hearing Lucy and Wallace both get to talk about each other and themselves and like the experiences they've gone through was really nice. Part of that was like, we really know Lucy really well, and I don't need to hear about like aspects of her backstory. I want to see her react to Wallace and react to, and like I want to learn more about Wallace, and I want to see her realize, oh, maybe this guy like could understand parts of me that other people have a hard time understanding. Like, not perfectly, he will not ever understand what it's like to be Black, but he's understanding like he's experienced a lot of like difficulties with different things, and has lots of different anxieties about things. Whereas with Blake and Tiffany's date was it felt much more of a like, this is a chance for me, the reader, to get to know Blake, and Tiffany's cute.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, no, I think, yeah. Hopefully we get to see another Lucy and Wallace date. I mean, I'm not going to be super surprised if we don't, because, like, there's a lot of stuff that people are like, oh, I really want to see this, and Wild Bill's probably like, I'm trying to wrap this story up eventually, people. I can't put all this stuff in there.
Like, I wonder if, because I wasn't really, I mean, I was sporadically current with Ward. Like, I would sometimes catch up and then fall far behind, but I wasn't really part of the community back then, and I'm curious as to, like, I feel like we all just, like we want the big conflict to wrap up, but I think we would be very happy if Wild Bill continued to release 2 chapters about the Kenneteers' lives, like, until we all died. Like,
oh, I'd be stoked.
Like, every week.
The thing is, like, I feel like the fan base with Ward got, like, really just kind of toxic towards, I don't know, there was a lot of criticism, some fair, some, well, a lot of it pretty nitpicky, in my opinion, just about where the story was going and stuff like that, and certain things people didn't like, and I think that really, like, I feel like for that reason, I was kind of glad when it was over and we could kind of move on. I mean, I was kind of sad because I really liked the story, but you could tell it was kind of in my opinion, I feel like you could kind of tell the strain in the writing as well. And I feel like this story, you can tell he's having, at least it seems like he's having a lot better time writing it, and that really, it just really shows. So yeah, this one I'd be totally happy with it going on for ever. I mean, maybe not like forever ever, but I'd be happy with this going on for a long time.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that I wasn't that clicked into the fan community, because I find that other people's opinions really can sour things for me.
Yeah.
And I liked Ward. But Pale's just so wonderful.
Pale's so good. Scott, read the stinking story. I'm calling you out because this is ridiculous.
Read
Scott, like, what, you have a baby at home you need to pay attention to? Is that your excuse?
Just read a chapter a week. You don't even have to catch up. Just race our mom. That's your challenge.
I mean, and to be fair, like, with how she's doing, like, I mean, she's really busy with stuff because she just fills her schedule up. It should not be that hard of a challenge for you.
Every time I talk to her, I'm like, Mom, have you read? Mom, have you read? She's like, no.
And it's funny because after we're done recording and stuff, she's like, man, I can't wait to start reading again. This is such a good story. And then she'll, like, just get so bogged down by all her craft stuff. Yeah. She does a lot of craftiness things.
As y'all know.
As y'all know, yes.
But yeah.
All right, but anyway, tangent aside, we're going to move on to Malia's bold and specific prediction.
Woo!
Woo! All right, so I have a feeling you're going to address something with Rose, since she, like, went AWOL.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I was thinking that a good, bold, and specific prediction would be that it wasn't Pooh's that dragged Rose off. It was actually Conquest, because
Okay.
Conquest has the chain or whatever. I don't know that I really believe that, but I feel like it'd get me good points if I was right. But I think it's probably more likely that Pooh's took her somehow. But
So
Conquest has the easier route that we know of.
True. So if Conquest did take her, why does Pooh's know that she's not going to show up?
So a bad scenario, because part of me is like, okay, he has to get Pooh's because we have to do the other 2 ones because the story has to keep going and we can't keep going back to Conquest because my god. But the bad version of this is that Pooh's went to Conquest and was like, hello, sir. They're trying to fuck you up. And together, we can fuck them up.
Okay. Interesting.
Again, I don't really know that I actually buy this at all, but it's bold and specific.
It's bold and specific, and that's really all we aim for.
That's our standard here on Pale in Comparison. I also, I don't know, I'm just like itching to see Paige, and like I was like, oh fuck, the North End. Like I'm really itching for some things. So my theory, because I'm like pretty positive that Paige is going to come back into the story. And so I feel like a bold and specific prediction that is probably not correct is that Blake is going to run into Paige in Toronto. Because it doesn't seem like we're leaving Toronto. Which Toronto is a very wonderful city in real life that you should all go to. But in this story, I'm just like, I want to leave. Like, I want to go back to Jacob's Bell.
All right.
Those are my 2.
I like it. Okay. All right, we're going to talk about last week's discussion question, which was basically recommend a board game to us. Also, you can let us know about a board game that reminds you of Conquest. So our first person is Tizaret. They talk about the Discworld Ankh Morpork board game. Which I don't know if I pronounced that right, but it's probably as close as it's going to get. So they were saying that it's a board game of coup and claim. There are 5 different win conditions, which are randomly assigned at the start. Sounds like the game involves trying to conquer the city without anyone else working out what the conditions for your victory are. Or if they do find out what they are, make sure that they're unable to stop you anyway. So that sounds like a pretty fun board game, and it does sound Conquest-esque, for sure.
That sounds amazing. I love Discworld, and it makes me very happy.
I probably should have just let you read that one. But
it's like, this game sounds so fucking good. Yes. And see, you should read this one because Captain Rhino recommends Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Fuck yeah! I almost want to say we talked about this last time, but
we talked about it on the Doof and Chill.
Oh, okay. Well, spoiler alert. We knew about this game, and I totally agree because it's awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
Basically, it's a game where you're kind of like exploring a haunted house, and you build the house as you go. Like every time you go through a room, you discover go through a doorway, you discover what that room is. And eventually you trigger the haunt, which is kind of like the end of the game. And
the funny thing is, pretty much every time we've played it, because with the haunt, you usually apparently it's not all the time, but a lot of the time, one of the players ends up being like the traitor, and it kind of like puts that player against everyone else. But I think sometimes you can have like no traitor or have different things. I have always been the traitor. Every single time.
Like
every time we've freaking played this game. It's always a different traitor-y thing. But
right, sometimes it's like the person to the left of the haunt triggerer person, and sometimes it's, like, it's always, or sometimes it's like the oldest, like it's always just some random thing, and it's always Jenny.
Random, and it's always me. And I usually win, which is fantastic.
Cheap.
Because also a lot of the time I don't realize, I mean, a lot of the time when we're playing this, like I'll act like I have some really good strategy, but really, like, I haven't really figured out what a good strategy is until like partway through, and then I'm like, oh crap, I should have been doing this the whole time to win. But I still usually win anyway.
Yeah, it's a wonderful game.
I gotta work on my evil laugh as the traitor. Okay, mine was that's why you're not the traitor, Malia. That's not a
the universe knows.
Yeah, no. That's not it. I'm sorry.
That's fair.
But Captain Rhino, fantastic choice, and highly recommend that game. And if we ever get an excuse to play Betrayal at House on the Hill on this podcast or on any podcast, I'm going to be pretty stoked because I get to be the traitor again. Unless it's not. That would be funny if, like, the first time I am not the traitor is
live on the internet. Yeah.
Woo. Exactly. All right, Mr. Cogs next talks about Cosmic Encounter. He says it fits Conquest since the default victory in the game is military. He says the game is more wormy than pacty. So I guess each player gets a card with an alien species, and each species has. Why did you say? Oh, like it's cute.
Oh, that was a sound.
Oh, it sounded like you're like, oh, like alien species.
That was supposed to be a thoughtful noise. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. Well, audience members, you could let us know which one you thought she was saying, because to me it sounded like a cute noise. Anyway, so each player gets a card with an alien species. Each species has a power that changes the game in some way and can be used throughout the game, which sounds pretty fun. That does kind of sound a little more wormy, I'd say, just from that.
Suddenly Upside Down, which is a really fun username.
It is fun.
Recommends Root. It's a game where each player controls a faction of a Redwall-esque woodland creatures who are vying for domination in a fashion unique to their species. So, like, cats start dominating the board, and they have a careful balancing act trying to keep everyone else down. Birds slowly try to rebuild their broken empire back up and reclaim the forest. And there's cool expansions that let you play as otters and opossums. So that's fun.
Woo-hoo! Yeah, it sounds pretty fun. By the way, a lot of these descriptions were a lot more descriptive on the Reddit post, and they were really good, but frankly, it's a lot. So I do recommend you guys going to our Reddit post and just looking at these games if they sound interesting, because we're probably not doing them quite justice, especially since all these lovely people spend so much time typing out why these games are awesome. So if it sounds like we didn't quite finish we didn't explain it very well, it's probably us trying to, like, cut it down, condense a little bit. Condense, that's a good word. Then there you go, condense it. Next, anyway, we've got Beleg Tall, who says that they're not very savvy with board games, but they were betting Conquest frickin' loves Monopoly, since it's about crushing your friends into the dust and making everyone miserable in the process. Which, fair enough.
Super fucking true.
Yes. And then I want to say, I should have written this down. In fact, hold on. I'm going to double check so I can give this person credit. I think it was Captain Rhino. Awkward music. Let's see. It was Captain Rhino. Yes. Go memory. They put a comment down below Beleg Tall's just saying that Monopoly has a pretty conquesty origin story. It was shared freely around different communities, a lot of people making contributions to the rule until one dude trademarked it and started making a lot of money out of it.
What dick.
Right. And which I did not know that. But they also mentioned, which I did hear about this, like it originally was a parable about the evils of unrestricted capitalism, as the point of the game is one person ends up owning everything. So it's not supposed to be this like, it's just like a very different I guess view of the game as opposed to like what a lot of people have now, which is like yeah, I gotta win, woohoo. Yeah, it was a little bit more like teaching the evils of unrestricted capitalism. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
That is interesting. I'm pretty sure I've never actually finished a game of Monopoly. It's very long, and it usually everyone's just like pissed, like 3 hours in. I also
I don't remember being pissed playing Monopoly. I just remember being like, all right, well, it's been long enough. We're gonna just stop.
That person's probably gonna win. Yeah, one time it became like an extended World War II metaphor among my friends, where three of us, who was I? I was probably the United Kingdom, and then there was and then my friend who loves France was France, and then there was the US, and we had like this like alliance sort of a thing against I mean, I don't know that we ever definitively identified anyone as Germany. That seems sus. Somebody was China. There probably was a USSR. I don't know. It was just a weird way of delineating like who we were allied against. And it was pretty dicks, but that was the only time I had fun playing Monopoly. Jenny and I had something called Medical Monopoly, which was very unlike Monopoly. There were just a bunch of like faces and windows in the hospital. And I remember that game being fun.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that game?
No.
You got little patients and you checked them in with the little faces in the windows.
Hold on. I need to Google this because maybe it'll jog my memory.
I don't remember it being very similar to Monopoly at all.
Medical Monopoly. Maybe really vaguely, but I don't remember playing it much. Did we actually play that a lot? Because I don't remember.
I definitely played this. Okay, I'm sort of looking at the board. So there's just like the money has these derpy looking doctors on it. And yeah, they're like you'd get little squares for people's faces and you'd stick them in the hospital.
They're pretty derpy looking, yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it looks kind of adorable.
It was real fun.
I mean, I feel like I remember looking at the board, but I don't remember anything about playing it at all. So
okay, that's fair.
All right, guys. Well, that's our contribution. Medical Monopoly.
Well, okay, no, my contribution is Mysterium. You should all play it. It's very collaborative and fun, but
mine
also Medical Monopoly.
Also Medical Monopoly. Mine would have been Betrayal at House on the Hill, but Captain Brian already way ahead of me. So
yeah.
But anyway, we're not done. We still got a couple other people.
Right.
So go ahead, Malia.
Speaking of, Beard of Valor suggests or recommends Rail Baron, which is a game where you roll dice and then you move that many dots along interconnected railroads. You pick the route, but you don't pick the destination. And as you reach different destinations, you can get paid and buy railroads. And sometimes you have to pay to travel on other people's railroads, or vice versa. This sounds kind of like Ticket to Ride, but not quite. I wonder if they're similar. I've never played Rail Baron.
I haven't played either one, but I mean, they both sound like train-esque games.
Yes,
so
they are.
All right, next we've got Violet Faith, who mentioned a bunch of, like, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, which I'm going to list for you now. They sound really fun, except that they didn't put any descriptions. But then again, I probably wouldn't either if I was listing 5 games. But first one they say is Netrunner. They say it is a 2-player game, but it's really, really fun. They also recommend Dominion, Concordia, Lost Cities, and Wingspan. So
I've heard of, or I've played Dominion. I haven't heard of the rest of these.
Ah,
It's a deck
okay.
building game. Dominion's really fun.
All right. That's about as much as description as the other ones. But no, I mean, I'm sure if these are getting recommended, they're pretty fun. So,
Yeah.
probably. I mean, some of the names just sound kind of intriguing to me as well, like Lost Cities. I don't know, something about Concordia just sounds interesting.
Totally.
For sure.
And then last but not least, Jeff recommends Clash of Cultures, which is a civ building game. They said that it usually devolves to everyone declaring war and trying to burn down everyone else in the last few rounds to like achieve
So like
victory.
Monopoly.
Like Monopoly. Sort of. So then apparently there's a later edition of the game that kind of mitigates this somewhat, maybe introduces different win conditions or something. And then they also recommend Cosmic Encounter. They think it's conquesty and light and goofy.
All right, so Mr. Cogs also recommended that one. So
yeah,
woohoo.
so 2 for Cosmic Encounter.
2 for Cosmic Encounter. Yeah, for the most part, we have some pretty diverse recommendations. So thanks, guys. We're gonna have to look this stuff up. Although, I mean, board games are pretty expensive nowadays. So
Yeah.
excuse me. I don't know if we're gonna be buying these right off the bat, but
that
I'm definitely gonna look into some of these.
Game, my god, I need
What was that?
The Ankh-Morpork game.
Yeah, that just sounds like something you would need.
Anyway, thanks, y'all.
Thank you, guys. So now we're going to go on to our discussion question for the week. Basically, we want to know, what label might you have based on a relatively short interaction / relationship? It doesn't have to be a bad label. It can. Right. But
I feel like this has similar vibes to the, like, you know how, like Jenny told the story about the guy who did karate in the middle of the road and stuff and was talking about dragons.
Karate guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that guy has a full life. Like, that guy's a whole person. And yet, to one person / couple people, he's like the karate guy. So maybe this is like not necessarily like, oh, my ex is toxic and bad. This could just be like, one time I, spilled my coffee at Starbucks and then was handed another coffee and then immediately dropped it. And I'm sure everyone told people about that if it happened or something like that,
Like the clumsy coffee guy. Yeah. Or if you can remember doing something that like, oh, like without context, this sounds really fucking weird. Like, oh, I was at the grocery store or like I went to Home Depot, or let's say Walmart, because they have a lot of shit at Walmart, and I bought a hatchet because I was going to cut down some plants in my backyard, and I was out of trash bags, and I actually was out of duct tape too. But I also needed some like lotion and some tissues because I ran out of those. Just like some weird stuff. Be like, oh, I was the creepy serial killer guy to that cashier, I'm trying to think of one for myself, but I don't know why I just got reminded of this story. Because I'm like, shoot, if they heard, they're probably just like, well, I don't know. Either that, or I'm just thinking of it as like the Santa Claus story. So this is a really cringeworthy moment for me, but it's kind of hilarious. I'm pretty sure I told you this before, Malia, but basically, when I was the first unit that I was a nurse on, I worked med-surg, and we have these medication rooms where we can go back, like, it has our medication machine, like, you have to unlock the door, like, with a code and go in, and besides pulling medicine, it can sometimes be, like, a place for people to just kind of, like, take a step away from patients and just be like, like, I'm so tired from today, or like, rant or whatever. It's kind of nice. It's a little private room with medication. So I was at the nurse's station really close to this medication door thing. But I was just like kind of goofing around with some of my colleagues. I think we were having like not a super rough day that day and just kind of joking around. I think it was sometime in the winter. And I swear I heard what sounded like jingle bells, like coming down the hall. And so I was like, in my head, I was just like, oh, maybe like somebody has just got something for the Christmas spirit or whatever. But I was like kind of jokey and stuff. And I was like, is that Santa Claus? And I said this relatively loudly. Around the corner comes one of my patients who was an inmate, and it was handcuffs. It was jingling, and she was walking with a guard. And I don't think I've ever unlocked the med room so fast, and I hid.
Oh my god!
Haven't I told you that before?
I don't think so.
Really? Oh, I was so embarrassed. I was just like, I'm gonna hide here, and then like my coworkers were like really laughing at me because they're like, "You're such an idiot." Is that jingle bells? Nope, it is not. So
That's horrible.
Yeah. So I don't know. What label would you give me if you were as either that or this the silly, like, I don't know, the ignorant nurse, or I just think of it as like the Santa Claus story to me.
Yeah,
that's the label I put on it.
The holiday spirit.
The holiday, the
Christmas.
ignoramus with the holiday spirit.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I mean, it's fine. I just was like, oh Lord, like, I mean, I know that she had to have heard me, but I just keep hoping inside. Maybe
she didn't connect it.
Maybe she didn't connect it. Yeah. Maybe she didn't connect that.
Oh God. So, yeah, mine isn't like a full fun story necessarily. Oh, I have a little story. But so I, as y'all might know, have like a pretty infectious laugh, and sometimes I'm self-conscious about it when it's pointed out because I know that a lot of people might find my laugh annoying, though no one has ever told me that.
They're so wrong because it's a great laugh, Malia.
But I, in my constitutional law class, I think my professor was pretty funny. He I don't know, he just has this like, I don't know, sense of humor that kind of clicks with me and stuff. And he's very like self-deprecating and a lot of stuff. And I sat in the front, in part because I have bad vision and had a hard time seeing the PowerPoints or whatever. But so I would just like giggle a lot and like answer his questions without raising my hand when I could tell that he just wanted somebody to say one word and then move on a lot. And I was just like very obnoxious in general. And I feel like a lot of the people in my section were like, that fucking girl. So I don't know if it's just like the girl who is a suck up in Vladik's class, or if it was like the girl with the laugh, or like what. But sometimes people would tell me that like when I laughed in that class, it would like help everyone else to start laughing, which is a thing that my laugh does sometimes. So like the girl with the laugh, I think might be like a label that I have. But one time I was in my law school and I was down the hall from the classroom or whatever, near a water fountain, kind of around a corner, and somebody in my class comes around the corner, and we all know each other, but like I don't know him particularly well. But he kind of like pops his head around the corner and he was like, "I knew that was you. I heard your laugh from down the hallway." And I was just like, it was horrible, but it was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was.
No,
nice
you have a great laugh, and that's one of the good things about this podcast. Because even if I say something that the listener might not think is funny, as long as you think it's funny enough to laugh, then they'll probably laugh at it. So it's kind of a cheat code. It's perfect.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. That's funny. All right. Well, give us your labels. And
remember that you are a full and complete person despite your label.
Despite
like
your
Tiffany.
label or your laugh or your Christmas spirit, you are a full person. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave a rating and review. To support our podcast, go to patreon.com/doofmedia. You can also check out our website at doofmedia.com to learn about all the cool shows on the Doof Network. If you'd like to support Wildbow as he continues to write fantastic stories, go to patreon.com/wildbow.
You can follow the pod on Twitter at Pale Comparison, or send us an email at paleincomparisonpod@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for our Reddit thread in r/parahumans, where you can answer our discussion question and share your thoughts on this episode. Also, why is it r/parahumans? Can we petition to make it r/wildbow? This is Otherverse and Twigverse erasure, and I don't appreciate it.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure Wildbow came up with that subreddit himself. So,
Wildbow, why?
Don't be such a hater. You're gonna make everything more complicated. It's fine.
I'm sorry, never mind. It's fine. Everyone
you're fine.
understands that that's where you go for the sweet Otherverse content.
Yes, it's the Wildbow Reddit thread, essentially, which is pretty sweet.
Yes. Well, in addition to that, if you'd like to see all of my predictions laid out, check out our episode description for a link to a prediction tracker.
And I actually have a Christmas-themed fun fact again,
Lol.
which I'm pretty sure I've had that before, but buckle up, guys. Okay? I did not actually do that on purpose based on that story, but it just kind of works out. In Japan, many families order KFC for Christmas dinner. Apparently it's due to a very successful marketing campaign from the 70s, I think.
Traditions.
They played some song what was it, My Kentucky Home or something like that. That's definitely not a Christmas carol, but apparently they did it so well people just assumed it was a traditional American Christmas song or something.
Love it.
That's probably not the name of that song, but Kentucky something. Anyway. That's my fact, and that's our podcast. So have a good week, everybody.
Bye.